What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the FFL. Woo! It is week 3 review time, and let's just get right into it. It was a crazy week. Real quick, I also just wanted to say, before we get into the games, I wanted to say what has been happening since my last episode in transactions and free agents and all that stuff. The Charlotte Cobras, they added Brandon Ayuk off of waivers for Jordan Addison, and then afterwards, Nate Hobbs was added to the Roydeville Rhinos from free agency. Yeah, I don't really know who he is, but I think he's good enough. And then the San Diego Sharks added Bobby I can't roll my tongue, Bobby Okereke, and Josh Metoulas. I have no idea for an injured Nick Bolton or just an out Nick Bolton. It says he's out, so yeah, that's what's been happening in the league, and I'll get to the games. And we immediately start out with an absolute banger. The Wisconsin Weasels scored 217 points. Oh dear God, that was insane. Already breaking the record that was previously set by the Cobras at 209 in week 1. The Wisconsin Weasels have now broken that at 217. And they absolutely beat up the Elves, who didn't even have a bad game. It was a good game for them. They scored 156 points. Really not bad whatsoever, but they are now 0-3. Not looking good for them. The Wisconsin Weasels going up to 3-0. And Cleveland Elves not having a good time this season so far. Looking at the live chart, it was so even for so long. The lines literally looked like they were the same team until it started going absolutely haywire and the Weasels started blowing them out. Looking at the quarterbacks, this was a very, very big difference, as Patrick Mahomes for the Weasels had 25, while Joe Burrow only had 8 points. Yeah, that was not a good game by Joseph Burr. But now looking at the running backs, for the Weasels, they had Ramondre Stevenson, who had 7, and Josh Jacobs, who had 11, so really not terrible, but they severely outscored the Elves, who had Cam Akers starting, who didn't play. I think he didn't play because he was on the Vikings for his first week. I don't know. And then Bijan with 10, which is a very down week for Bijan, which, I mean, the Lions did a great job at stopping it. Now looking at wide receiver, oh my good lord, this was crazy for Keenan Allen, who has been having an insane year for fantasy so far. 46 points. Oh my God, that is crazy. He outscored Jamar Chase, who had 26, by 20 points. Oh my God, that is crazy. And looking at the other wide receivers for the Weasels, they had CeeDee Lamb with 10, Puka Nacua with 12, and that's it. I mean, it was a bad game except for Keenan Allen, who went absolutely off. Now for the Elsa wide receiver, the aforementioned Jamar Chase had 26. Amon-Ra had 20, which wasn't even bad. And Chris Olave had 18, so really not a bad game at all at wide receiver, just absolutely outnumbered by Keenan Allen on his own. Now at tight end, Evan Ingram had a pretty good game, 13 points to Gerald Everett's 9. Not great, but Evan Ingram, pretty good game for him. Now looking at the RYT position, the flex position, Kenneth Walker, I'm pretty sure it's the third, had 30 points. Oh dear, that is a lot more points than Calvin Ridley's 7 for the Elves. Yeah, the Elves were just getting walked right all over. Now at kicker, Riley Patterson doubled Daniel Carlson, which is kind of crazy. Daniel Carlson is one of the elite kickers, but I guess his team is just not good enough to put him into positions where he can kick, and that's why his score is low. And Riley Patterson, good enough kicker, had 8 points. Now, moving on to defense, the defensive line for the Weasels, Aiden Hutchinson with 13 points. Oh baby, that was a good game by Aiden Hutchinson. You don't see defensive linemen doing that, but Aiden Hutchinson does. And along with Daron Payne, who had 4.5, they definitely did better than Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave, who had about 10 points together. Now at linebacker, the Elves didn't have terrible. I mean, they had TJ Edwards, who had 12, which is pretty good, and then Dre Greenlaw with 4. But compared to Roquan Smith and Foyesade Alukan, who had 10 and 12 respectively, it was another loss, and Weasels got another advantage. Now looking at the DBs, just looking at this, it's pretty evenly matched. For the Weasels, Rayshawn Jenkins, Antoine Winfield, and Talawana Hufunga had 4, 8, and 7, compared to Jesse Bates, Cameron Curl, and Jaquan Brisker's 5.5, 5.5, and 11.5. So, I guess one good takeaway for the Elves, I guess. Now looking at the bench, kind of crazy, but the Weasels could have definitely improved their score. Justin Herbert had 30, which was 5 more than Patrick Mahomes, so I guess could have been better. And other than that, not really anything notable. Micah Fitzpatrick and Alex Singleton had 9, and that's really it. Now looking at the Elves bench, Mike Williams had 25 points. Man, these Chargers wide receivers are going off. And yeah, that's it. No one did anything else at all. And once again, another 200-point game. I believe that is the 5th this season. I'll recount that in a second. No, it is actually the 6th 200-point game as the Roydville Rhinos deconstructed the Green Bay Cheeseheads. It actually kind of looks close in the live chart, but trust me, it was not close. At least what the score says. 50-point difference. I mean, it's pretty bad. Cheeseheads only had 154. So, yeah. Getting outscored by 50 points, pretty bad, especially when you're the Broncos. And with this win, the Roydville Rhinos go up to 2-1 on the season, getting a win streak of 2 together. And the Cheeseheads drop to 1-2, getting losing streak of 2, and yeah, fallen quickly. Now, looking at the quarterbacks statistics, Jordan Love for the Cheeseheads had a pretty dang good game. 25 points, not bad whatsoever. And Dak, oh yeah, Dak Prescott, he's having a bad season. It's just because of his defense is so good. But when you score 14 points to the Arizona Cardinals, that's just sad. Now at running back, I'll just calmly start over here with the Cheeseheads and Aaron Jones, who had 0, and Isaiah Pacheco who had 15. Remember, Isaiah Pacheco was picked number 3 overall. Remember that. But anyway, moving on to the Roydville Rhinos running backs. Yeah, you know what, James Conner, good job. You did it. You had 19 points. Good job, James. Oh my dear God, Raheem Mostert. Holy, oh my God, 45 points for Raheem Mostert. 3 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown, 60 receiving yards, and 82 rushing yards. Oh my God, that is kind of insane. Now let's just calmly move on to wide receivers. For the Rhinos, pretty average. Mike Evans, Jerry Jeudy with 13 and 17, and then Brandon Cooks stunk it up. And then for the Cheeseheads, 18 for Metcalf and 17 for Michael Pittman. Not terrible, but Darnell Mooney had 0. Now at tight ends, George Kittle had 16. That's a really freaking good game for a tight end. And Travis Kelce had 19. That's also a very, very good game for a tight end. Now at RYT, Terry McLaurin had 10. Romeo Doubs had 19. So, yeah. Romeo Doubs, good job. So, yeah. Now at kicker, this is a very, very good kicking game as Tyler Bass had 15 compared to Evan McPherson's 17. Very good job by these boys. Now at D-line, Zach Sealer had 0.5, and they won by 50. Yeah, okay. Jeffrey Simmons had 2. Really not a good defensive game by the Rhinos. And Aaron Donald had 9. Kenny Clark had 6. So pretty good defensive line game by the Cheeseheads. Now at linebacker, Zaire Franklin continues to be dominant with a 15-point game, along with Josie Jewell putting up 3. And, I mean, just looking at the stats, Cheeseheads did not do well whatsoever. Now looking at the defensive back room, Kyle Hamilton, 18? A defensive back? That's insane. And, yeah, they did incredible there. Jair Alexander and Jalen Petrie had 0 for both teams, and that's everything that's notable. I mean, Kyle Hamilton, goddamn. Now looking at the backups, nothing notable for the Rhinos. DeAndre Swift had 14, Pat Freiermuth had 13, and Gino had 15. Probably wouldn't have improved them much, but maybe would have improved them. Now looking at the Cheeseheads on the bench, Kirk Cousins, 25. Same as Jordan Love. And Tyler Higbee with 12, and yeah, nothing really impressive there. Now, we actually have a competitive game all the way down to the wire. Salt Lake Skiers pulling the bag, or not the bag, pulling the win out of their bag by only 14 points, pretty close. 145 to 131. Stunner Boys lost, going to 1-2. And Salt Lake Skiers getting their first dub of the season, going to 1-2. Looking at the chart, it was fairly competitive. Skiers pulled ahead and kind of plateaued until the Stunner Boys started coming back, and then the Salt Lake Skiers were like, okay, come on, we gotta win this, and they went out and they won. Now, looking at the statistics, Tua only had 28 points, which is kind of insane that you have 4 passing touchdowns, 309 yards, and only 28 points. Might want to boost that up. I don't know. I'll talk about that with the assistant commissioner. But Tua with 28 and Jalen Hurts had 20, so really not bad whatsoever. And then running backs, it was not pretty. Let me tell you, Saquon's had 0. I'm pretty sure he's injured, though, so I don't know why he's starting, but Derrick Henry had 3, Tyler Algier had 4, but Tony Pollard on the Stunner Boys had 15, so that's pretty good. Now, looking at the wide receivers, Amari Cooper and A.J. Brown had 24 and 22. That is very, very good statistics. And Zay Flowers, not a bad game as well with 13. Now, looking at the Stunner Boys, they had 2 guys that didn't play. So maybe you want to do that and put them on, like, I don't know, reserve or on the bench or something, as Jalen Waddle and Cooper Kupp had 0 because they didn't play. And Tyreek Hill had 30, which, I mean, really carrying the load there, Tyreek, jeez. And then tight ends pretty evenly matched, Mark Andrews 7 and Kyle Pitts with 8. At RYT, Jahmyr Gibbs had 9 and DeAndre Hopkins had 7. At kicker, Jacoby Myers had 17 points. Now that is how a kicker, I don't know what I was going to say, but, I mean, that's how a kicker carries a team. They lost, though, so, I mean, yeah. Justin Tucker had 7. He missed. That's, man, Justin, get it back together, man. That's crazy. Now, on the defensive line, Brian Burns for the Stunner Boys had 7. Really not bad at all. Quinton Williams had 2, and it was just bad, really bad. Christian Wilkins, Josh Allen, 1 and 3. That's not fun. At linebacker, though, Frankie Luvu with 4, Fred Warner with 3. Really not a good game defensively by the Skiers. Now for the Stunner Boys, Cody Barton had 10, and that was the only 10 they got at linebacker, as Eric Kendricks had 0. Probably was injured or something. I don't know, man. And then DB is also really not anything interesting. Jalen Thompson had 7, Julian Love had 6, Deshaun Elliott had 6. I don't know. Not really interesting. But looking at the bench, this is very interesting. Lamar Jackson for the Skiers had 30 points. Man, that is kind of crazy. Jordan Hicks had 8, and that's really all that's noteworthy. For the Stunner Boys, though, Christian Kirk had 15, Miles Sanders had 17. Didn't realize he actually did good in a game. That's kind of crazy. And then Damian Pierce had 14, so probably could have improved maybe even 1, but I think the Skiers pretty much had this in the bag. Now, we have the 7th 200-plus point game. And man, Charlotte Cobra is looking dominant. The 3rd straight week that they have scored over 200 points. And keep in mind, we have only played 3 weeks. Kind of insane that they do not know what it feels like to be in those hundreds, just like the San Diego Sharks did with 150. So yeah, I mean, the teams that are losing, to 200s, they're not having bad games at all. In the first couple weeks, we got a lot of them where it was like nearly 100 points, but now it's more like 50. So I guess teams are figuring out what the other team's doing and finding a way to stop it. Now the Cobras move to 3-0, and Sharks go down to 1-2. Looking at the chart, it was kind of interesting. The Sharks actually had the lead until it was Sunday, and the Cobras absolutely blasted past them. Now looking at the statistics, Quarterbacks pretty evenly matched, surprisingly. Joshua Allen had 21 for the Sharks. Jared Goff had 18, so not bad. Travis Etienne with 17, and Kyron Williams with 8 for the running backs for the Cobras. And then for the Sharks, Christian McCaffrey with 22. Yes, sir, you already know. Christian CMC Sexy McCaffrey. And Joe Mixon had 14, so really not bad. And then at wide receiver, Devontae Adams made Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison look like tiny little mortals with 42 points. Oh man, that is kind of crazy. I didn't know he went off, but he went off. And Justin Jefferson has continued his stretch of only scoring like 25 points per game, which is insane. And he has 27. Oh my god. Jordan Addison, a rookie, 12, not bad. And then for the Sharks, Deebo Samuel with 25, that's pretty dang good. Michael Thomas had 11, and T. Higgins had 4, so really not great at the other ones. Tight end TJ Hawkinson continues his dominance with 13 for the Cobras, and Darren Waller has 5 for the Sharks. Not great there. At RYT, though, Stephon Diggs had 19, very good. And George Pickens had 11, so really not bad as well. At kickers, bit more evenly matched. Not really, I was joking there. Young Hoku with 6, and Harrison Buttkicker with 11. Yes, sir. Now at D-line, Dexter Lawrence with 7, not bad, along with Max Crosby with 4. And then DeForest Buckner and Chris Jones were there, and they didn't really do anything for the Cobras. At linebacker, though, T.J. Watt with 7, Micah Parsons with 6, pretty good. Now, I don't know why Nick Bolton was starting, but yeah. Drew Tranquil had 7, which wasn't bad. And then at DB, Jeremy Chin, Adrian Amos, they had 10, 11 actually combined. Yeah, and then Trayvon Diggs got injured, so not great for the Sharks. And then Javon Holland for the Cobras had 14. That's pretty dang good, along with Sauce and Tyson Campbell, who only had 2. Now looking at the bench for the Cobras, it wasn't great really at all. Myles Garrett, though, went off. 15 points. Oh, man, that's a lot of points. And now for the Sharks, really not great. Michael Gallup had 15. That's kind of crazy. 21 for Deshaun Watson, and yeah, that's about it. Now, looking at the standings, starting out in the FFC, the Wisconsin Weasels continuing their dominance at 3-0, staying in that number 2 position in the whole league, staying at number 1 in the FFC. Now, the Royalville Rhinos going up 2 to number 3 with a dub this week, going up to 2-1, and number 2 in the FFC. Pretty dang good week for them, I would say. As behind them is the Cheeseheads at 1-2. They're not going anywhere. They're not moving. They're just staying mediocre. As the Cleveland Elves are falling, they are now the worst team in the league. The only undefeated team. Yes, undefeated. I wish it was a word. I really love that word. But yeah, they are the only undefeated team at 8 and last place in their division. Now at the SFC, the Cobras are the other 3-0 team. It's going to be exciting when them and the Wisconsin Weasels play each other. And then the Sharks following close behind at 1-2. Not really close behind whatsoever, especially considering they just beat them up. Yeah, Sharks, they're a bit higher only because they won the week before, not this week, obviously. So they're 4th in the league, but 2nd in the division. The Stunner Boys, 1-2 as well, moving down 2 to number 5. Their second loss on the season, and going downhill a bit. Now the Salt Lake Skiers, they're going up 1 to number 7. Not bad, considering that they started out 0-2 and finally got their first win. Good bounce back week for them. So, yeah. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next week, next time, whenever you'll want to. See ya.